and you pinch them, you can break all of the little hairs on the top, and by the time you've scrunched it up into a ball, there's none left that can sting you, and you can eat it just like that. What does that taste like? A leaf. So what is a weed? Well, it's essentially just any plant that's growing somewhere that we don't want it to, especially in cases where we're trying to cultivate things like flowers or in a farmer's field where they need to grow crops. But does that mean that weeds are all bad? Well, no, and this is the important thing. Loads of these plants that we call weeds and we find growing in our gardens and we pull out of the ground are all really important for pollinators and for soil fertility. So the word weed is quite a loose term, but when we're talking about it, we all kind of generally know that we're on the topic of those plants that grow really quickly and can take over our gardens. And these are the ivies, the stinging nettles and brambles of the UK. But these qualities that make them so unwanted and so aggressive are also the ones that make them so helpful. So lots of these weeds, these plant species, including the bramble, are pioneer plants. And what that means is that they're the first to colonize an area of bare earth or ground. And what they do is they pull up the nutrients from the soil, they change the structure, and they actually make it habitable for other plant species and subsequently animals. So essentially, these weeds, these plants that we don't want, set up the whole ecosystem. Now, one of the most notorious weeds is this, the stinging nettle. And it's really characteristic, and most people will recognize it because of these tiny little white hairs that cover the leaves and also the stem. But these hairs are in fact like tiny hypodermic needles. They're all hollow, and when you brush up against them, you're injected with a cocktail of chemicals, including formic acid, which is the same stuff that you'll find in an ant sting. So it can hurt quite a lot. Now, the other super interesting thing about nettles is that apart from it being really important for butterflies and a bunch of other UK species, it can actually help out people. Some studies have suggested that you can reduce the pain around joints and also muscles by applying the sting to your skin. And some others have also said that you can in fact lower blood pressure. But apart from that, it's also really, really nutritious. Lots of people have it in tea and some in soup. I haven't tried it, but apparently it's good for you. Now here's another plant which is the bane of some gardeners, the bramble or blackberry plant. And the reason it's so notorious is because it grows so quickly. This plant can grow up to 3 inches per day, and those shoots that are exploring the new territory, the new ground, can actually then propagate themselves by rooting. So they're really hard to get rid of. But just like the nettle, they're really, really useful for wildlife. Not only are they a nectaring source for butterflies like the brimstone and the speckled wood, but they create huge patches of habitat for hedgehogs, grass snakes and others. And also the blackberries provide food for birds and mammals like badgers and foxes. And even if you don't care about the absolute mouthful of things that they do for wildlife, blackberry jam, people. So if you're walking around in your garden trying to figure out what plant or tree to cultivate next for wildlife, just remember that there are already lots probably trying to grow that would be really good. Just leaving a patch of grass to grow wild or leaving a dandelion in your flower bed can really help the bees and other insects in the UK. What we have to remember is that even small animals like bees have to travel a really long way just to get nectar and pollen. And they need nutrients and water just like we do on a long journey. So even just one wildflower in your garden could be the difference between life and death for a little bumblebee trying to get home. Hey everybody, thanks so much for taking the time to watch my video. If you liked it or didn't, I'd love to hear your feedback. And if you would like to see more content from other up-and-coming wildlife filmmakers, presenters or scientists, make sure to subscribe to the Wildlife Exposed TV YouTube channel.